Today's episode is all about knowing thyself. And I share with you a big breakthrough I had last summer when I did a human design assessment and realized I was a projector. And if you know human design, you get it. I don't need to say anything else. If you don't, look it up. Human design's very cool. But I talk about all of the different types of assessments I've done through my entire professional life, both for personal reasons as well as professional development. And like ones I did in corporate, ones I did from reading books like The Five Voices. And it's been an ongoing journey of understanding my makeup, understanding why I have propensities, and what the things are that I'm just really good at, what I'm naturally drawn to, where my strengths, my passion, my talents all lie, and why in some areas, like doing long division and a lot of financial stuff, I run away screaming because I just can't deal with that stuff. Typical creative, right brain person where you've got the, yes, I can do this all day as far as the creative stuff. But when it comes to the logical, mathematical, scientific, evidence-based stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's just so funny. And we all have our things we're good at, things we're not so good at. But when you start looking at your business as a solopreneur and you're learning the things that you're good at, you're not so good at, there's some that are the practical skills that we can all learn. Doesn't matter whether we're good or bad or indifferent. We can all learn how to do social media. We can learn how to build a website or write some copy. Are there things that we could farm out that we don't feel we have interest in or strengths in? Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why I'm around and why other people are around doing what they do. Understanding where your strengths are, understanding why you're comfortable doing some things and not so comfortable doing others is really important when you're a solopreneur. It'll come out in your business marketing. It'll come out in the way you communicate, the way you sell. All these things are really important. My invitation and what I share on this episode is to invite you to continue that exploration if you haven't done like some sort of assessment or deep introspective study of certain things that you're struggling with or that you're challenged with and why you're having problems with that. And typically they show up as patterns, by the way. And I give examples of this, how this showed up for me. And you'll laugh at it, given what I do for a living. So you'll really get a lot of insight into how this can actually help your business from this episode. So I hope you enjoy it. It's kind of crazy too. So it's one of those, where I just kind of go on and go off the rails a couple times. So anyway, thank you for your patience. Anyway, let's have some fun. Welcome to My Solopreneur Life. I'm Terry Pappy, your gracious host, and I am so glad you're here. I have a wonderful episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's have some real talk about what it is to be a solopreneur. I would say one of the coolest things about being a solopreneur is to really understand who you are, know thyself. And being in business for yourself, it's personal, it's scary, it's exciting, it's wide open landscape for opportunities. You can pretty much write your own ticket, but boy, is it a lot of work. When you take a moment to use your own business to understand your own mental makeup, your personality, your kind of preferences on who you want to work with, how you want to market your business, what you want to do. There's a million different aspects that you could grow, understand, and learn about yourself through the lens of having your own business. This is why I love working with solopreneurs and why I love being a solopreneur. It's not cut out for everybody, obviously. And that all kind of dovetails into knowing yourself. It's like, do you know if you have what it takes to be a solopreneur? Do you really want to take that on, or is it just something cool to do? Your attitude about who you are, what your tolerances are, what you really want to accomplish in your professional life, what kind of income you want to make, and who you want to be in the world. Like, what kind of difference do you want to make? What are you passionate about? What skills do you want to bring to bear? That all is derived from who you are as a human being. And the more you get to know who you are as a human being, the better off you're going to be as a solopreneur, like, let's say you started as a solopreneur, but it ends up becoming a legitimate business where you hire a team, where you create exit strategies, where you get venture capital, where it turns into a real business and you become an entrepreneur. And all those things matter when you understand more about who you are, what your propensity is, and just the life you want to live, right? So for me, there have been three things that have been my credo, if you will, or the things that drive everything I do in my life. Now, I'm not just talking about my professional business. The first one is freedom. Every choice I make has got to be rooted in the sense of freedom. Freedom from complexity, freedom to make decisions that empower myself and others, freedom to fill in the blank, freedom, period. Okay. The second thing is the ability to create and be creative. I am naturally talented in a lot of creative aspects, whether that be painting, drawing, the traditional artistic stuff, as well as writing, coaching, guiding, advising, organizing, selling. There's a lot of creative things that I love to do in how I live my life, even if it's organizing my Tupperware drawer or my silverware drawer in my kitchen. And yes, we all have that drawer that's the kind of catch-all drawer that's full of crap. Well, mine's actually really organized, believe it or not. I have a little tray for every little piece of junk that I have no idea. I have no idea what this round thing goes to, so I'll just stick it here. But it has a place. But I don't take it too far. I don't get really super anal about it. I get a lot of satisfaction out of being organized and having things organized in my life because it reduces complexity. So freedom, number one. Number two, the ability to be creative and to create. The third one is the ability to inspire others to their awesomeness. And I'm probably exercising that third item in my credo in my life more now than ever because I've been on the planet long enough. Yep, I've been around a few times. And I feel like it's the give back era. And I don't have the stigma of looking good or appealing in a certain way or being super polished, whatever, fill in the blank, that a lot of people get hung up on today when they're out there trying to make a difference in the world. I'm sorry. This is going to be one of those episodes. Sorry about that. So when I look at my ability to inspire others to their awesomeness, any of my clients can attest to this. This is how I work with clients, to be specific. But I also do it with personal friends. I derive a ton of satisfaction and joy, and it heals my heart to help other people. Now, sometimes people don't want to be helped, so you got to understand, where do you fit in that whole equation? Those are my three most important things that drive Terry Pappy, who I am in this life, who I am on this planet, and how I want to contribute to my own experience as well as those close to me and those I can impact in a positive way. Whether it's creating content on LinkedIn that teaches somebody how to be more confident in their business, whether it's from my book about my husband, 14 Days, somebody who's going through a similar loss and they need comfort, to just me smiling at somebody in the grocery store and making a joke about something on the shelf or whatever. Anything to lift someone's spirits, to be creative, to be fun, to enable people to just take a deep breath and realize that life isn't so bad and that you're not in it by yourself. You're not alone. So knowing those things about myself, it took me a while to kind of get to that awareness, and I had to deliberately look at who I was, how I functioned, what my preferences were. And you can tell by how you feel. When you gauge your emotions, you can tell real easily how you feel about a particular aspect. You learn about your personality. You learn through relationships, through job experiences, through your health and wellness, how you approach all that. Life has a way of teaching you who you are and helping you make better decisions as you age. Aging isn't all that bad. You actually get a lot of good stuff along the way. Today, what I want to talk about is something more recently that I have discovered. It was incredible how it lightened my load. I was feeling very challenged by marketing my business. I was very resistant to pushing my services on people, to being pitchy, to doing sales funnels, to making offers, typing up these big long sales pages that everybody was doing. None of it's ever sat right with me. And I know that there's a lot of other people, solopreneurs in particular, that have this same experience with marketing their services. Some people are really good at marketing in a softer, more straightforward way. Others they want to jam it down your throat. And it makes all of us a little resigned and cynical about marketing and advertising in general. And I'm sure you have your own notions and thoughts about that whole world as well, like I do. So when you have your own business, you have to market your services. You have to find ways of getting out in front of people that could hire you for what you do, finding the right audience to kind of do your little bear dance in front of so they can say, oh, okay, they do that. All right, that's great. Let's go take a look. And it's challenging often. For the main reason of solopreneurs have a challenge in seeing ourselves objectively. Okay. So when you can't really see yourself the way that a prospect or your audience sees you, you're at a disadvantage. So the more you can learn about yourself, the more you can shore up your shortcomings, your skill gaps, your understanding about who you are, and even your understanding of your ideal client, it can really make you much more effective at the sales process and even at the marketing process. All through my corporate years, I participated in a lot of different types of assessments that improve the professional development. For example, Myers-Briggs. If you've had a corporate job, you've probably done the Myers-Briggs assessment or possibly had training in that after your assessment to understand, well, if you're an INFJ, that means you need to do this and do that. And the funny thing is when I did mine, I think I'm actually an INFJ, but my scores were all right in the middle. With Myers-Briggs, if you are off to one spectrum, then you obviously have to create some awareness around compensation to the opposite end of that spectrum. But I was so identified in the middle, it was just slightly, so then I was an I versus an E, like introvert versus extrovert. And I thought that was really interesting that I had such a nice balance, and which was good for me because I was able to adapt to different environments. For example, be more extroverted in an environment where I would prefer to be introverted, kind of thing. I know you're probably thinking, Terry, I can't believe that you're an I in Myers-Briggs. You must be an E for sure, because the way you go on in your podcast. Alas, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about know thyself, right? So that's Myers-Briggs. And then another one that came through corporate was StrengthsFinder. And StrengthsFinder was a way to make a list of these strengths that you had based on an assessment and how you can move on from there. There were a lot of great tools that became available through corporate that I could gain insight into my personality, my work style, the ways that I communicated. But I probably got more out of things that I was doing outside of work, meaning assessments that I was taking outside of work. I did everything from a traditional kind of more corporate-y assessment type of a thing. For example, one of my favorite books is The Five Voices. And Steve Cochran and Jeremy Kubicek, I think, are the authors. And they have this giant business around it now. But when it came out, I thought it was fascinating. And their premise was there are five voices, and each one of these voices has a communication style. That's why they call them voices, that does certain things. And of course, mine was creative, of the five voices. And I thought that was really fascinating. In fact, I even started deploying that model into my business, where I wanted to identify my client's voice. So if they were a particular voice, then I would make adjustments in how I needed to communicate with them. Because as a creative, the style of communication for a creative is to speak in the future. And so a lot of people don't recognize the value of what a creative voice can contribute because they're speaking in the future. And so as I was finding out, they would take the assessment and I would find out what their voice was and I would adapt. So for example, I would be very thoughtful and methodical when I would go through an estimate for a project. And I'd explain, this is why we're doing this, and we would do this. And they needed to hear that. In the past, before I realized that I had access to this assessment model, I would get very defensive when someone would ask me probing questions about, well, why are you doing that particular step? Or why do I need to go through all these things? So whenever I used to get challenged, I would always get defensive, like, well, I have to do this, right? So I kind of got pushed back on my heels. Whereas now I come prepared and I know that client needs to understand all of these steps. And so that's just one example of how I started using these models. Wherever I had the opportunity to do an assessment that I found interesting, to take a look at myself and see, is there a sharper lens that I could look at myself through and use that to serve my clients better, to be a happier, healthier human being and contribute to others and fulfill my three credo: freedom, ability to create and be creative, and then the ability to inspire others to their greatness. That's kind of like the background of my interest in understanding myself, my personality, how I could get better at doing certain things or being a certain way, better communicator, what have you. And then, it was a long time ago. It was well over 20 years. I think it was even before I started my business. But it was after my husband passed away. I came across this other kind of personality assessment test or whatever called human design. And at the time, I think I did the assessment, and I was, there's obviously nuances in human design. Human design is quite complicated and layered. It's basically a system that uses like your birth date, where you were born, what time you were born, and it creates a body graph that helps you understand your personality and your life purpose. And, it combines astrology, Kabbalah, other disciplines. And it's actually really cool. And because I think it's so complex, I didn't really take the time to understand it, or at least understand it in a way where I could apply it in my life. Now, this is back then, and it's been around for a long time. I encourage you to research it. I'm not an authority on human design, but there is definitely a ton of information out today that's easily accessible via YouTube, etc., that you can learn about it really quickly. But this is a cool thing. And sometimes with these assessments and these models, you can really just take the top layer, like the initial assessment, and you get the whatever you are. You're an INFJ. If you do the Myers-Briggs, you're a leader. If you do Strengths Finder, that kind of thing. So you take that top layer, and you can do a lot with that, right? To get into the science of it and take a real deep dive, that's always an option. I don't know that a lot of it for some of these is really necessary, because here's the thing. Some of these are powerful enough where you can get a lot of mileage out of just that top layer. So with human design, I never really, I kind of read the assessment. I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, whatever. But I don't think at the time I had enough exposure to what they were saying a projector was until recently. So last summer, I decided to go and do another assessment because I don't know if it's because I didn't remember it or something got put in front of me. I can't remember what triggered it. But I went and did the assessment and I read that I was a projector. I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds kind of familiar. Yeah, I think that's what I was before. But the way the assessment was presented, I read it in a totally different mindset. I have been struggling with being a bro marketing kind of, hey, in your face marketer, have always resisted it. I'm very shy on social media for the most part. Like if I post things on social media, it's like a contribution. It's how to inspire somebody, give them confidence. Here's a funny story about myself. So it's more about sharing Terry, kind of like what I do on the show. But for me to be like, hey, if you want a better website, here's 5 steps to do this. Download my free report. And I mean, it's like, just saying it makes me cringe. So, and the funny thing, that's why have said in other episodes where I don't see myself as a marketer, and it's because I've always resisted marketing. Well, guess what? It's because I'm a projector. Yeah. So projectors, at least what I've been able to glean so far, is a very small percentage of the types in human design. Okay. You have manifesting generators, you have generators, and so on. And the projectors, there's less than 20% of the population are projectors. Yeah, I feel special, right? Until I read the fine print and I was like, they said projectors are here to guide and we have to wait for the invitation. And when I first read that, I was like, what the does that mean? What does that mean? Wait for the invitation, right? I understood the guide thing, right? Because that's the third item in my credo. And it's very much my style and how I do my work and how I serve clients. Very much a guide, advisor, and very intuitive. And sorry, this is just so funny. This is one of those weird episodes where I'm just talking about things, about very personal things. But that's what I promised you I would do. Let's be very transparent and authentic. And so here I am struggling with this whole wait for the invitation thing. Well, the beautiful thing about human design today is there are so many wonderful people on YouTube, just YouTube alone, that are sharing some great information about human design types and body graphs. And so I started watching some of these, I'd go on YouTube and I'd type projector in human design and marketing struggles. And like a ton of videos came up. And these people who have studied in-depth human design, they're like human design coaches and so on. And they're talking about all these things. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel that way. Oh my God, that's exactly how it's been for me my entire business. I have always struggled with this. Oh, now I understand. Wait for the invitation. Okay, all right. So that's why there's been this big resistance of my own marketing, my business. And I was just talking to a client today about, I said, remember, I told you I was a terrible marketer, but I'm a great salesperson. And I am. There actually is a very, very big difference between the two. So I started voraciously consuming these amazing videos about projectors and marketing and projectors and business and projectors and communicating and all these wonderful things. And I was like, wow. I mean, it was gong to my head. It was like gong. But what was amazing about it was finally, something about my personality that I'd always been frustrated with because I didn't understand it. And I thought it was honestly a shortcoming of Terry Pappy, that I just didn't have that in my DNA. It was just not something I was good at. It was like, putting long division in front of me. It's just not something I liked and I didn't want to do. and I certainly wasn't good at. So, so what was amazing about the realization and connecting that to all this past, what you might, at least what I was calling failures at the time. And I was like amazingly relieved, instantly relieved, like, oh, I don't have to do that. I actually am being given permission that my human design model, my body graph says that's not what I'm here to do. And then I'm like, well, crap, how do I get business if I can't market? But that was more in the literal sense. But it was incredible how my whole attitude about marketing, my whole attitude about content creation, okay? So being a guide as a projector is all about guiding, showing your expertise, being a thought leader, putting yourself out there to the betterment of others, but doing so in a way where you're really demonstrating your ability to create value and success for people. And that's something that always did come naturally to me. Duh. That's why we do these assessments, people. And so creating videos, writing posts, writing blogs, writing books, creating all this like voluminous content, this is my second podcast, right? So I love just creating content, helping people, providing guidance, helping people. Like I'd say, this is the real talk about being a solopreneur. I'm being about as real as I can be right now. These are the things that I value and I think can really move the needle in your life, in your solopreneur business, and in any aspect of what you're trying to accomplish. And so this episode is really just about know thyself and use the tools that are out there that are available to not only make yourself feel better about being in your own skin. Like I made it okay to be a bad marketer. It's because it's just not something that I want to do. And then I really want to invest a lot of time in. But the content, oh my gosh, I could create content till the cows come home. In fact, I'm even toying with the idea of doing a new book series and doing training courses on my site. And just like, because I love to create and I love to provide value. So when you consider how you show up in a solopreneur business, in your business, and looking at the things you struggle with. Now, it's one thing to struggle with, well, I don't really know about strategy or I don't know about this. There are pragmatic things around business that you can definitely learn, or you can work with a coach or get somebody to do it for you. There's always ways to do those practical things, but I'm talking about inside your personality, your temperament, your inclinations about what you like, what you don't like, what you feel you're good at, your natural talents, your passion. All of these things contribute to your model that can be viewed through these assessments so you can gain the insights to help yourself grow, help yourself shore up the areas that you might have some deficiencies or weaknesses or things getting in the way of getting things accomplished in your business and in your personal life too. And that's the great thing about it, is you can learn a lot about yourself as a whole person, not just who you are in business. But let me tell you what, being a solopreneur puts that all on stage. Let me tell you. What did I say in an early episode? That having your own business is like the best personal growth program you could ever do. Definitely, for sure. So that's what I would like you to do. I'd like for you to, as a prompt, take time to sit back and look at the way that you have grown through having your business, grown through your career at jobs you've had in your earlier career before you became a solopreneur, or where you're at now if you're considering being a solopreneur. And look for opportunities where you've learned about yourself, you've grown, you've leveraged some sort of asset or tool to help yourself not only do better in your business, but provide more value to your clients. And see if there's something that you haven't quite yet nailed down. Is there an area in your life, in your business, that you still are struggling with? That's not a practical execution thing. Like, I need to learn how to do social media. Okay, I'm going to go over here and learn social media. But something like, I'm afraid to post on social media because of what people will think. Okay, there's something behind that that's inherent in your personality. It's inherent in your way you perceive yourself, the way you're presenting yourself in your business, etc. Take a look at that. Use one of these tools to find out, is there a way that I can provide relief? Just like I was completely relieved once I realized that's why I struggle. It gives you that insight, and it gives you tools on how you can do different things that are much more satisfying and much more successful, or you'll be a lot more successful if you actually take that on and get in alignment with what your predisposition is, or what your type is, depending on what lens or what tool that you're using to assess it. And there's no one that's the one and only great almighty thing that you use. Do a bunch of them. I mean, I only listed a few on this show, but I've done many, many, many self-assessments that have helped me really understand multiple dimensions of my personality, my temperaments, and everything that I like, don't like, am good at, am not so good at. And you got to understand, we all have all that going on, all of us. Use a tool to help you get better insight, be a better solopreneur, and just a happier person all around, right? Because that's what we want. We want to have happy people serving other happy people. The more happy people we have, the better off we are in the world, right? Thank you for listening. Thank you for bouncing along on another funky Terry Pappy episode. And so check it out. I'll see you in the next show. Well, I know you're disappointed, but that's it for this episode. Listen, the great news is there's another one coming, so stay tuned. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you do the prompt. If this episode had a prompt, and you get that homework done, because you're going to be a better solopreneur. How's that for a maternal finger shaking at you? Hey, listen, thanks so much for being here, for giving me time of your day, and, for taking it on. So if you want to learn more and stay connected with me, just head on over to mysolopreneurlife.com. Thanks a bunch. See you soon. That was pretty good. I think I'll keep that one.